today we're going to be talking about PTSD and coping with the COVID-19 pandemic. This is our second session and we're from CSR. So Brianna and I are your mentors. So we just want to introduce ourselves. My name is Ashweja Barai. My personal pronouns are she and her. And I'm a third year psychology and music student at York University, Calumet College.
And I'm Brianna. My pronouns are she and her. I'm going to my fourth year of psychology and sociology at York University's Glendon campus. Hello, we're just doing the introductions. So if anyone is new here, you can just put your name, your pronouns, maybe your major, and your favorite food in the chat.
Okay, I'm going to continue. So just to state once again, today's topic is coping with the COVID-19 pandemic. Oh, we have someone introducing themselves.
Biology third year.
Yeah. Wow.
That seems very hard.
Valid. Anna, what's your favorite food?
I like pasta, but I do love a good salad too.
Yeah, I agree. Salads are good. Okay. Oh, we have another.
Oh, another third year biology.
Wow.
Oh, my favorite food is pasta too.
Oh, cool.
Is everyone here in Toronto?
Oh, cool.
Engineering student and loves ramen.
Ramen. As a student, I'm sure everyone loves ramen.
Yeah.
It's so convenient. Okay, so I'm just going to continue. So today's topic is coping with the COVID-19 pandemic. So a really interesting fact is that June 27th was actually PTSD Awareness Day. So just to define what PTSD is, we've taken a definition from the American Psychology Association. So post-traumatic stress disorder is a psychiatric disorder that may occur in people who have experienced or witnessed a traumatic event, such as a natural disaster, a serious accident, terrorism, war, sexual violence, or a serious injury. So your question is, how is this connected to the pandemic that we're currently facing? So researchers have actually found that after traumatic events such as Hurricane Katrina or even the Chernobyl disaster, populations have increased their PTSD symptoms. And research has also shown that since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, populations have been facing higher levels of PTSD symptoms. So I just want to talk about what PTSD Awareness Day is and how it began. So the US Senate actually officially designated this day, the 27th of June in the year of 2010. They actually also designated this whole entire month of June as PTSD Awareness Month. And this is also because June was full of days relating to the military. Sadly, women are twice as likely as experience to experience this disorder, and this is frequently as a result of the sexual trauma that they face. In 2019, PTSD Awareness Day was officially recognized in Ontario and is now on the calendar of health and promotional days. So we just want to talk about the symptoms, and we want to go into depth about the symptoms in detail. So we're talking about PTSD and the COVID-19 pandemic, and now we're just going to talk about certain symptoms that you also might be facing. The first one is increase in social anxiety. So as we all know, humans are built for connection. I think no human goes without making connections in their life. And since the start of the pandemic, we've had to socially distance and isolate ourselves, which means that we're not used to social situations anymore. And that also, in fact, builds to the fact that we don't know how to rebuild the networks that we once built. This also leads to you don't know who to trust and how it's been. So I actually had to move back to India at the start of the pandemic. And it's been so hard because some of my friends are in Toronto, some of my friends are all over the world. And it's been really hard to, know if we're the same or, just who do you trust? Like, is our connection the same? Because you're not physically meeting these people anymore. I also know for a fact that Toronto has now opened up. And Brianna was telling me the other day that all her friends have been, inviting her, and that kind of leads to social anxiety, right? Like, because you don't know how it's going to be catching up with your old friends, or even you're not too sure about how safe it is, right? Which brings us to the next point.
Yeah, after like almost a year and a half of, being isolated, it almost feels like it's wrong to like meet up with your friends again. It just doesn't seem like normal anymore. But that's kind of the point of, going back to the new normal.
Yeah. So this also has increased germophobia and health anxiety. So germophobia is actually the fear of germs or diseases, and hypochondria is the fear of getting sick. So I know for a fact that every time someone coughs, we all get a little more conscious and kind of are like, oh, that person just coughed, and that often leads to the fact that or maybe I'm coughing, do I have COVID? Or maybe, oh, I touched something and I have COVID. I actually went out for a drive the other day and I didn't even get off my car. But by the time I was in my car, I knew I had already touched my lift button, I had touched the door, I had touched so many things. And I was so conscious about the fact that, oh my God, I've touched things around. Does this mean I can have COVID? So these two have actually increased, and it's proven by a lot of studies. There's a specific study that highlights the long-term mental health impacts, and this is by Mary Savage, and she's talking about social anxiety, germophobia, OCD, and PTSD around the COVID-19 pandemic.
All right, and another way that people might be feeling PTSD symptoms now that the pandemic is, tapering off a little bit in Toronto, specifically is with unemployment. So at the beginning of the pandemic, a lot of people lost their jobs, including myself. Thankfully, that job wasn't my sole, I wasn't being solely supported on that one job. So I didn't have any bills to pay. I still live at home with my parents, but it was a job that I really loved. So it did lead to a sense of loss of purpose, especially since we were being kind of trapped at home in isolation for almost a year and a half. If you were without a job or couldn't find a job, there is a sense of feeling like you don't have anything to do besides just online and virtual school, which is already hard on its own. Especially if your job was your main source of income, it might have been hard to pay bills. It might have been difficult having no income, and that can lead to feelings of stress, even if you get your job back or if you get a new job. Just experiencing being without the money that you used to have can lead to a sense of PTSD post-pandemic. And all of these, losing a job, making it hard to pay bills, lacking a sense of purpose, they can all cause feelings of stress and dissatisfaction that can last even when the pandemic is long over. So another reason why we all might be facing an increase in PTSD post-pandemic is because of losing our loved ones. So fortunately, I have not lost any friends or family to the coronavirus. I don't think anyone that I know has even lost anyone, but I'm sure there are people who have lost friends or family to coronavirus. And even if you haven't lost any family or friends, throughout the past year and a half, there was the constant fear that they could get sick or that we could lose them. This can lead to an increase in paranoia and anxious behaviors, such as checking up on family members often to make sure they're okay, or even the frequent body checking we talked about in the last slide, like Googling symptoms. Was I sick? Could I have gotten my family member sick? All of these types of anxiety could definitely lead to increased PTSD post-pandemic. Just living through losing a loved one or experiencing this constant paranoia can lead to PTSD symptoms. So another topic I want to dive into that could definitely lead to PTSD symptoms post-pandemic is the anti-Asian hate we have been seeing prevalently throughout the entire world since the pandemic started. So 71% of Asian Canadian respondents to a poll felt that anti-Asian sentiment has gotten worse since the pandemic started. 13% of them have said they have been threatened since the start of the pandemic. So definitely in Toronto, where there is a large Asian population, this is definitely an issue that we must be thinking about and taking into account. Definitely the increase in anti-Asian sentiment, more so in the States. There have been a lot of articles coming out of incidents, but definitely in Toronto as well. This can definitely lead to long-term effects of PTSD among our Asian population in Toronto and in Canada in general. And this is definitely something that needs to be handled and taken seriously. So just to start off with a few ways to cope, I didn't want this all to be depressing PTSD stuff post-pandemic. There are definitely ways that you can handle the stress and reduce levels of PTSD symptoms post-pandemic. So one way you can do this is by helping others. So people who believe in stronger communities are reported to have lower rates of PTSD after disasters, like the COVID-19 pandemic. So you can help others just by listening to them, because by listening to someone else can make you feel calm and can make them feel calm. So don't just lend an ear, but be heard yourself. The second thing you can do is practice self-care. So everyone always talks about practicing self-care, but this can mean anything to different people. So whether that's meditation, yoga, mindfulness, taking walks, listening to your favorite music, cooking a beautiful meal, that was definitely something that was prevalent in the beginning of the pandemic. All these people making bread on TikTok and Instagram. Reading a book, whatever your healthy coping strategies are, you have to do them at least once a day. Make yourself feel calm. Take time out of your day to take time to yourself, not just virtual school or any other commitments you have. Take this time to relax.
Knowing it will be over. So in this article by Regal, there's a doctor that actually stated that the most crucial thing I can say to a patient is that to remember at some point it will be over. We've heard this quote, there's always a light at the end of a dark tunnel. And I think it's just about passing through and waiting it out. So guys, we need to know that it is going to be over one day and everything will go back to normal. Also, another option is getting help. So there are many therapists that are offering telehealth services, and there have been a lot of studies that say that telehealth effectiveness for PTSD is just the same as treatment that is offered face-to-face. And at the bottom, we've put a link for programs and services for telehealth options that you can use and that are actually free pretty often, and these are all from CAMH.
All right, so we had a little poll for everyone just to make sure everyone's paying attention. Let me get it launching. So the first question that we have is, out of all the situations below, which one would be considered a main reason for PTSD? So I'm going to launch the poll. The first one we have 4 polls and they're all posted at once, but let's start with the first one. So out of all the situations below, which one would be considered a main reason for PTSD? My parents and I are having a fight, the COVID-19 pandemic, I lost my phone, or I didn't get a desired grade in my course. So I'll let everyone put in their answers and we'll go over all of them at the end. All right, question 2. When is PTSD Awareness Day? So the first question was a bit of an easy one. The second one you have to have remembered from one of the beginning slides. So is PTSD Awareness Day June 5th, June 11th, June 27th, or June 21st? All right, I'll give everyone a moment. And I will take it to the next slide. Poll 3. Who is most affected by PTSD? Is it women, the LGBTQIA+ community? Is it men? Or is it women and veterans? I will give everyone a moment again. All right, and I'll hand it to Ashreja for the next slide.
The last one we have is, which coping mechanism do you believe will work best for you? So there's no right answer to this. We all work differently, but we have a few options here. So helping someone else, practicing self-care, knowing and reminding yourself that you are safe, or getting help from a mental health professional. We're gonna wait for a few minutes so you can answer the 4 polls and then we can launch the results.
And When you're all finished the poll, you can submit it in. All right, so the first question. Out of all the situations below, which one would be considered a main reason for PTSD? So this one was an easy one, the COVID-19 pandemic. All of the other options are definitely things that may cause stress in your life, but they're usually not a traumatic event that would cause PTSD. All right, on to the next one. Everyone got this one right too. When is PTSD Awareness Day? So you guys all remembered. It was June 27th.
The third one, who is most affected by PTSD? Women, LGBTQIA plus community, men, women, and veterans. The actual answer was women and veterans. Women because of sexual trauma, like we discussed, and veterans often because of war. The last one, of course, no right answer, but I'm glad to see that everyone has their own ways. Yeah. So practicing self-care, I know that's something I do. I have a weekly schedule. On a Sunday, I draw myself a bath, I put a face mask on, I read my book. I kind of take the day off social media because reading so much news often gets exhausting and negative. But someone else said knowing and reminding themselves that they are safe, and someone else also said getting help from a mental health profession, which is nice.
Yeah, definitely me too. I also love practicing self-care. But besides that, even reminding yourself that you are safe, you can even put like notes in your phone, like sentences like "I am safe" or things that you can look and read when you're feeling anxious or anything like that, and then you can remind yourself of it. And also getting help from a mental health professional. Definitely, you can take a look at the link that we posted a few slides back. We'll be posting the slides. So if you want to look up on CAMH, their telehealth services, that would definitely be of help.
Okay, so we have a few resources lined up for you guys. So the first one is actually just an article that summarizes a lot of the points that we were talking about today. The second line is from Healthline, and it's just a resource talking all about the pandemic. And I'm pretty sure this is a Canadian resource, so you can go through it. The third one is relating the pandemic to PTSD and everything inclusive, and the last one is specifically symptoms that individuals are facing of PTSD due to the pandemic.
So if anyone has any other questions, feel free to unmute yourself to ask, or even drop the questions in the chat and we can answer them. But if you have a question later on you maybe forgot to ask, you can send us an email at csrmentorship@gmail.com. And thank you all for coming. If you have any other questions, I'll let you guys drop them in the chat. Was anyone else surprised that the pandemic caused PTSD symptoms?
I know I was, because when I was going through the resources to make this slide, I was actually shocked because turns out a lot of people are facing the symptoms.
Yeah, especially because it's not, now that we're living through it, we always think of traumatic events as something we would never go through ourselves. So it's interesting seeing that we are the ones facing the effects this time.
Right.
I was surprised at some of the symptoms and didn't even realize it was PTSD. Yeah, definitely. So a lot of the PTSD symptoms and other symptoms we mentioned, like symptoms of social anxiety, OCD, and just anxiety in general, they can definitely overlap. So some symptoms of PTSD are anxiety, depression, being triggered by certain events or words that you hear, like maybe watching the news could be triggering for someone, and seeing maybe like the cases numbers of COVID, stuff like that. So all of these are parts of PTSD. All right, if no one has any other questions, feel free to send us an email if you have anything else you're thinking about later on, and we'll get back to you there.